Hey, what's up guys and welcome back to Anime King 3, and today I'm going to be giving you part 7 of What If Naruto Was Neglected with a solo leveling system. Remember to get this one to 100 like as usual. Share this to all of your friends on your social media platform. And also guys, don't forget to go ahead and check out the other channels, yes. I indeed have 5 of them which I post What If on every single day for you guys to enjoy. So go ahead and just obliterate that red subscribe button. Links will be down in the description, so go ahead, check them out, and yeah, enjoy. So without further ado or wasting any more time, what do you say we jump right into this brand new episode? Let's begin now guys. So the last spot we left off, as Naruto was jumping from tree branch to tree branch, slowly making his way, he knew that someone was following him, as he finally came to a stop and tell the person to show themselves. As it did not take too long, the person was not coming out, so he decided to burn everything down behind him, as Jiraiya revealed himself. Finally he was face to face with Naruto. After all these years, he only wished to talk with him, but Naruto did not seem to be in a talkative mood. As both of them steer each other off, they even come to draw their attacks against one another, as Naruto would not return back with him. Jiraiya had tried to place a seal on him to, suppress him, but that was not going to happen, as Naruto showed him that and sent him sailing away. He had no feelings of returning to that village ever, and Jiraiya had to get that through his head. Naruto had quickly used his shadow to get out of there, leaving the Sannin alone, but Jiraiya did notice something. The look in Naruto's eyes. It was a broken look, like someone who was lost so much. Jiraiya had made the connection of someone going around eviscerating everything that belonged to Orochimaru. It seems like Naruto had a big grudge against the Sannin. Yes, it did, and Jiraiya wanted to know why. And he even tried to convince Naruto that the leaf would be the best place for him to return so they could find and take out the Sannin together. But Naruto showed him that he was not interested in the slightest. As he made his way off, we then skipped to Orochimaru, who was safely resided within the Kazekage, office. He has done a lot. Killing the Kazekage was a big part in taking over, and that was something extremely good for his part. Orochimaru was also receiving help from the outside. Yes, he was. Things were a lot better now, and his pursuer would be killed in the upcoming Chunin exams. There was no doubt about that. As for Konoha, they made it through the preliminaries, as Menma made it through. They were now off training, as Menma was getting help from Yamato because of his Mokiton, while Mito was working on something by herself, as she didn't need a sensei for what she was working on. Her mother had came out there to give her a glass of juice, because the place was really hot. However, things were still not fully recovered between the both of them. Given what Mito had found out, given what she now knew, it was just not fully back to normal. Kushina had knew that the moment this secret come out, that things would never go back to normal completely. And she was right, as Mito was just not... She didn't have it in her to just return back to normal like nothing was wrong after what she found out. So with that, the remainder of the weeks came by, Once they were over with, it was time. Yes, the Chunin exams. A lot of people are here to witness the exams. A lot of people are here to see the new generation and how they stack up. As the first match took place, Mito was to face off against a prodigy of the Hyuga. It was Neji Hyuga. The both of them came to blows with one another. The both of them found themselves respecting each other in the battle as it dragged on. Because of his father, Neji was not like the other Hyugas. He was more docile and calm, even nice, to his cousin Hinata Hyuga. Granted, she was not that powerful because of her shy nature, but that did not matter though. He helped her, trained her, and now him and Mito came to blows. In the end, Mito came out on top, defeating Neji before she fell down soon after. The match was close, but she still won. So with that, the remainder of the matches went on, as no one noticed the shadows that ran through Konoha. Itachi Uchiha came to see one of those shadows that was luring him somewhere. He knew that technique, he knew, had the control over it. So he went and came face to face with Naruto. Naruto told him everything about the invasion. Itachi was baffled and shocked when he heard about that, as he made it discreet and came to speak to the Hokage. He left out the information about Naruto, as he already knew what to do. As Minato came back to the booth, not showing emotions in the slightest, despite knowing everything that was now going on. The word was spread towards the Konoha ninjas for them to be ready, for them to be prepared for what is going to happen very soon. And it did not take too long, as Orochimaru set off the invasion when Menma was defeating Gaara in the final battle. Once that was set, the place went into chaos. Everyone was fighting. Everyone was drawing their weapons and fighting. Ninjas that Orochimaru had gathered. Ninjas that hated Konoha and despised Minato. A lot of them was rushing into the village, helping the sand and the sound as they clashed against one another. As the chaos reigned, something started to appear. At first, the Konoha ninjas thought that it was another enemy until the hundreds of shadows started to fight on their side. Kakashi and the others watching as they butchered and slaughtered the sound and the sand ninjas. It was a massacre as they clashed against them. It was pure chaos, and whenever one of the shadows died, they returned back to Naruto, who was calmly making his way as he was in the center, spreading his shadow. Kushina saw him. She did not hesitate to rush towards him as fast as she could when he threw his blade at her. She was shocked. She could not even evade. However, it showed that the blade whipped past her and impaled a sound shinobi. She breathed a sigh of relief. She thought that he was trying to kill her, but that was not the case. But she never got the opportunity to speak with him though, as he quickly made his way off. Naruto pulled out a strange blade in front of the barrier, as he used anti-chakra to cut right through the seal and step inside, going to face Orochimaru. It also turns out that Naruto had took the Kazekage's shadow, which now had a chakra source for himself, and was building up a massive amount of sand at the edge of the perimeter of Konoha. He was up to something. Well, Naruto was up to something. Menma and Mito also found themselves flanked by two of Naruto's stronger shadows, helping them in their endeavor, as Mito felt the same feeling that she felt back at the bridge. It was him. So yeah guys, it's basically let's left off. You guys can switch across and please check it out for yourself. And also guys, don't forget to comment down below and turn on that bell notification as they posted. So without further ado, what do you say we jump right into this? Begin now guys. We begin this episode with Mito as she gazed up at the furious eyes of Gaara. Half of his body was covered in sand. His nails, made from sand, they were close to her face, trying to rip her apart. However, a feet smashed in his face, courtesy of Menma. Gaara was sent sailing as Menma grabbed Mito's hand and threw her right towards the Sanjin Juliki. Mito went through hand sign before she took in a breath. She then started to shot water bullets right towards him. Gaara was blasted back. A chain shot from Mito's back and wrapped around Menma's stomach as she launched him in the sky. Menma started to rain down water attacks as well. Gaara was being outdone. He could not withstand their combined strength and speed, and they were soaking his sand, his weakness. His sand was moving much slower. He released a furious growl that sounded demonic as the wet sand shot outwards. Mito and Menma used their combined link with the chains that Mito had on him to move each other and twist out of the way. The both of them ran beside each other, mixing wind and water together. This was the first that they ever did this, as they did their combined attacks and it happened to mix together. The bullets of wind and water merged and turned large. Gaara was blasted and he was sent sailing as he crashed through several branches before he stopped moving. That ought to stop him, said Mito as she looked towards the unmoving body of Gaara. She glanced behind her as standing there was the two shadows that had accompanied them. One of the shadows was holding Temari and the other one was holding the unconscious Kankuro. The shadows were allowing them to fight and not interfering. However, they took the brother and sister out of the equation. Mito knew that this was Naruto. He was watching over them. He was protecting them. Something's not right, Menma said. Something was definitely wrong. Menma felt it, the chakra, and Mito felt it right after. The both of them had to leap away. But despite the space that they left between them and Gaara, the sand came out so fast, it was about to hit them until a gust of wind completely obliterated it. When they landed, they saw that one of the shadows had his arms extended. However, they had no time to even thank them as Gaara was transforming. They looked up in a bit of fear as they saw Gaara on the head of the Shikaku. His mouth was bleeding, so was his nose as well. He seemed ragged and beaten from the attack. However, he was furious. Now, I'll feed the both of your blood to mother, he said. Gaara slammed his hand together as he activated his secret jutsu that put him to sleep. Suddenly, those strange shuriken eyes of Shikaku opened up. The bloodlust was so thick. Shikaku roared to the heaven. I'm free, he yelled. Meanwhile, within the village, Kushina came to a stop. As she was in a dilemma, she glanced towards the barrier where her son had went. Naruto, from what she was told, was strong enough to defend himself. She had to allow him to do that. Minato was also in there as well. But Mito and Menma, they had went after Gaara. She had no choice. She turned and quickly made her way. They had to put a stop to the One-Tails. They had to. Mito and Menma found themselves backing away. Can you stop it? She said, turning towards her brother. Menma had sweat running down the side of his face. Yes, he was efficient in the Mokidan for his age. No, he said. Despite how strong he was, he could not stop a fully rampaging tail beast. He was just not strong enough yet. Menma, she said, snapping him out of his funk. As earlier stated, Menma had a bit of a confidence issue, believing that he was just not good enough and he would not stack up to what everyone believed that he would. You can do it, she said. You just have to believe in yourself. And remember, you're not alone. That is when two hands were rested on the both of their shoulders. Menma and Mito turned as they saw the two shadows. They had placed the bodies out of the danger because Naruto knew that the sand was being tricked into this. The children did not deserve to die. What are they? Both Menma and Mito were caught off guard when the two shadows started to sink into theirs. They were taken aback until they dropped down to their knees. Something was wrong. What did they do? Mito said, feeling pain, and then it was gone. A violent amount of chakra completely destroyed everything around them. When the smoke cleared, both Menma and Mito were different. They had no shadow. The other shadows seemed to have bond to their own and bond with them, giving them access to a wealth of chakra that they could fully control. Both of them had black markings, like a curse mark running over their body, that were glowing blue on the inside. They looked at their hands. Shikaku had felt the chakra as he shot a sand bullet towards them. Mito brought her hand up, chains shot from her palms. The chains completely blocked the attack like it was nothing. Mito was surprised. How did I? There was no way her chains could have blocked something that powerful. It's Naruto, said Menma, a smile on his face. He's given us the power that we need to take him down. Mito smiled hearing that. As she looked towards her brother, he believed in us. Let's believe in ourselves as well. Let's go. With that, the both of them rushed forward, running straight towards the massive one tail, without a shred of fear in the world. Meanwhile, inside of Konoha, it was pure chaos. Kakashi, Kurenai, and Guy watched as these shadows were mercilessly slaughtering all of the sound ninjas and the other ninjas that came with them. The sand ninjas were being speared. A battle between a Konoha and sand ninja was interrupted by one of the shadows. The shadow had willingly risked its own life to save the sand ninja, a Kunoichi, as it got stabbed right through the heart. However, it simply vanished away, running off to somewhere else. It did not seem to have a physical form anymore though. Kakashi and Guy and the others, they were confused until they were informed that the sand ninjas were being used by Orochimaru, who was pretending to be their Kazekage. Now they understood. Whoever controlled these shadows, they knew about this. As the Uchiha clan and the others had quickly gotten rid of all of the sound ninjas, with the help of the shadows, they were completely overrun. The snakes were slaughtered. They were losing big time. Meanwhile, inside of the massive chakra dome, as the barriers was fully intact to keep everything inside and keep everything outside, well, except for him. The Sound 4 had no idea how he was able to break through. He simply cut through it. That blade that he had was no normal blade, of course. And now the person had entered, and they could not stop him. Meanwhile, on the inside, everything seemed to have paused. Orochimaru could feel it in his soul. This was him. This was the man that was chasing him. Even the first and second had came to a stop as well, because Orochimaru wanted some answers. Minato, on the other hand, he seemed frozen with shock. It was him. There was no doubt about it. His son, Naruto. As he stood there, Naruto's eyes did not look at Minato though. His eyes were fixated on the snake Sannin. Something in my gut is telling me that you're the one that is hunting me, he said. You would be correct, said Naruto, as he looked at the man. Well, I'm glad you're here, Orochimaru said, with that usual cocky, arrogant smile. Would you mind informing me? Why have you been doing what you've been doing? A few months ago, you sent your man, that bone individual, the Kaguya, if memory serve, to kidnap a boy who has an exponential amount of chakra. His name was Yukimaru. Tell me, do you remember that? Oh, young Yukimaru, Orochimaru said. Unfortunately, he did not make it through my experiments. He died. Let me guess. He was someone close to you? No, I never met him before. However, your bone pal did. Killed someone I care about. Someone that meant everything to me. And I want you to know that. It was because of your actions why I lost the one thing that I had in this world that meant everything to me. The one thing that gave me a reason to go on. And you took that away from me. Orochimaru noticed the conflicting emotions on the face of Minato. He seemed hurt. That is when he started to notice the similar features. Despite the hair being different, the eyes were the same. The structure of their face. I must be crazy, Are you two related? He said. Oh, we are, said Naruto. In fact, he's my father. The Sannin was more shocked to hear that. So all this time, the one that has been chasing me was your son, Minato. Well, it seems like it's not a happy family reunion, given how speechless you are. They turned their gaze as they heard a massive explosion. They were able to see the gigantic Shikaku was brought down and hit the ground hard. Orochimaru frowned, but Naruto smiled as Minato saw. That was the Mokidan wrapped around him, and chains as well that pinned Shikaku down to the ground. Well, it seems I will have to pick up the pace, Orochimaru said. The moment he said that, the first Hokage arrived behind Naruto. Naruto, behind you, said Minato, as he was about to throw his kunai until Naruto took off the first Hokage's hand. He then spun and slammed his heel right into the man's chest. The first Hokage crashed hard into one of his own branches. As Naruto stood there, the first Hokage picked himself up though. He was unhurt. After all, he was a reanimation. That is when Orochimaru noticed something strange. What did you do? He said. I'm not sure how you brought them back, but this here, it's a very special blade. Seems it can work against your jutsu as well. Naruto started to bounce on his feet. So, let me guess. You're gonna try to get your revenge for that person I took away from you, Orochimaru said. You're not the first to try, and you won't be the last. I'm glad that you're here, because I can kill you with this village, he said. Minato, said Naruto. As Minato was about to speak, but Naruto tossed the blade right towards him as he caught it. Use that. That should get rid of them, said Naruto as he focused on them. The seal is located in the back of their head. Use that to get rid of it. As Naruto could see the weak point on every single person in this world, reanimation or not, a special ability of his. The next second he was gone, not giving Minato a time to speak. Orochimaru crossed his arms. He was so fast. The tiling on the roof exploded. The Sannin felt a lot of bones in his hands broke immediately. He slipped away as both him and Naruto started to clash. Orochimaru was fully healthy. Having fought Minato, his reanimations were doing most of the work. As both him and Naruto clashed against one another, this battle started out violent. Naruto attacks were coming in deadly. The Sannin was slipping and flipping away, trying to avoid as much as he could. As he realized something, this individual hits even harder than Tsunade. Naruto's fist impacted with the Sannin's face. Orochimaru's eyes were a daze, as he wondered if he was seeing double because he had lashed out at one of them and yet he still got hit. Blood and spit and teeth flew out of his mouth. Naruto was not done as he grabbed the Sannin by his throat. He started to squeeze before he buried his fist in the Sannin's guts. Multiple of Orochimaru's organs start to suffer immensely from just one hit to the gut. Naruto was not holding back his strength in the slightest, and him going full force. He was far stronger than Tsunade. Blood exploded from the Sannin's nose. His eyes turned blood red. Because the blood vessels, they pop. Flood in his eyes as well. His ears start to leak blood as well. However, his mouth unhinged as another Orochimaru slipped through. However, he was frightened as Naruto gripped his leg before he could escape fully. Naruto then brought him down into the ground. Orochimaru lashed out and slammed a kick in Naruto's face, causing the both of them to flip, which they did. As he was released, Orochimaru lashed out his hand. "Hidden Shadow Snake," he said, as Naruto muttered, "Quicksilver." The next moment, all the snakes were turned into pieces. Orochimaru found himself seeing the attack coming towards him as he ducked. He watched as a strange, unusual blade that had been pulled out of nowhere gazed over his head, almost completely slicing his face off. The Sannin bent his body to an unnatural degree. He then spat a snake out of his mouth. Said snake spat a blade from its throat. The all-powerful Kusanagi. It shot towards Naruto's back. There was no way that he would be able to dodge this. However, Naruto simply placed his blade over his shoulder and deflected Orochimaru Kusanagi. He then spun. Orochimaru used his ability to pull the blade towards him as they clash. Sparks and chakra was clashing everywhere. The both of them start to appear and disappear all over the place as they fought alongside one another, slashing and cutting at one another, until Orochimaru caught Naruto off guard as he brought his blade down to take off Naruto's head. That was until Orochimaru's arms went limp. The Sannin was shocked till he noticed that the tendons in his arms had been cut. Boom! Orochimaru was not prepared as Naruto's elbow shattered his face. His nose was broken. The Sannin was thrown back as Naruto appeared in front of him. However, Orochimaru opened his mouth and spat poison in Naruto's face, a strange gassy poison. His hand was then covered by electricity as he slammed it in Naruto's gut. Orochimaru then disappeared and drive a brutal punch into his skull, slamming him across the pavement. He then kicked Naruto in the stomach, launching him away. He then ran forward with his bleeding face and broken nose. As he held the Kusanagi out, he was about to pierce it through Naruto's chest. As he came down as Naruto's body was lying on the roof, his vision facing the heavens. That poison should be enough to buy time as Orochimaru brought the Kusanagi down. It all happened so fast. Orochimaru staggered back. The right side of his face had been sliced off. His right arm collapsed down to the ground. His right leg had been removed as well, leaving him on the ground, flopping and bleeding out. As Naruto had tilted his head at the right moment and moved his body, the Kusanagi was right beside him. Naruto picked himself up. There was a few marks and blood was leaking from his cheek, just from a tiny mark, showing how durable he was despite all of that. Not to mention the poison did not affect him in the slightest. But despite that, Orochimaru was still a S-rank missing ninja. He was supposed to be a S-rank, and yet twice now he should have died. Orochimaru regurgitated himself once again. This time the snake Sannin panted a little bit, frustration on his face. "What's wrong?" Scared, Naruto asked. Orochimaru spat with disgust. "Afraid of someone like you? I am Orochimaru, the strongest Sannin. I can never be afraid of some petty little child that seeks revenge for a dead lover. Your concerns do not matter to me. Your loss do not bother me. And just like many others, I will slaughter you like I've done to many in the past that seek revenge. I will never fall to someone like you. You and I are not on the same level. I am immortal. A stain of garbage like yourself can never get rid of what I am, the Sannin said. Frustration and anger leaking from him. That is when Naruto appeared behind Orochimaru and caught the three-pronged kunai. He then threw it away. Minato appeared over to the side. Why did you do that? He said. I had him. This does not involve you, said Naruto as he stepped towards Minato. Walking towards the man, he held his hand out. Give me my sword, he said. That is when Orochimaru realized that Minato had taken care of the reanimations. That sword, he was able to take them down. They were no longer. Minato looked at Naruto. He wanted to say so much, but this was not the time. Orochimaru appeared behind Naruto, his blade about to decapitate Naruto. However, Naruto lashed out and caught it. The Sannin was petrified, in shock, given the power of the Kusanagi, and it not being a normal blade. The fact that Naruto caught it was truly worrying. That is when Orochimaru realized the unusual power around his hand. The Kusanagi was powered by chakra, and immediately, the Kusanagi started to petrify. Orochimaru was confused as it started to run down the blade. He had to let it go as he jumped away. Naruto was now holding the petrified Kusanagi. Whenever he killed someone powerful, he had the ability to learn their most powerful attacks, and this was one that he acquired in the past. Naruto then brought it down and shattered it into pieces. He took his blade from Minato, who handed it over. Smoke started to leave Naruto's mouth as he looked up. His eyes started to glisten as he started to push all of his power to the forefront. His body started to tremble. The whole roof started to tremble. The barrier started to fluctuate as Naruto closed his eyes and released a breath. An image of Gurren flashed in his mind. When he opened his eyes, the bloodlust, even Minato had to step back. Orochimaru was petrified in fear. This has never happened before. Orochimaru couldn't understand. His knees were trembling. His legs felt like they were going to give out as Naruto released his unusual bloodlust to put fear into even Orochimaru the Sannin. The Sannin released a mass amount of his chakra, trying to counteract the effects. But despite that, he could still feel it. Not as strongly, but he could still feel it. Naruto's body was now coated by a purple aura. He then vanished. The Sannin tried to defend himself. Minato was baffled. All he could see was a white of Naruto blade. Orochimaru cursed and screamed, trying to deflect as much as he could as Naruto ripped and tore into his flesh. Naruto jumped away. He now had two daggers in one hand. Dagger rush, he said. Green, blue, white. All sorts of light covered Orochimaru. He tried to deflect the attacks, throwing out attacks of his own. However, he got skewered in the arm, in the leg, slashed through the stomach, as Naruto appeared and sank his feet into his face. He did not let that stop him though. He grabbed Orochimaru's leg along with the daggers to rip through his stomach. The Sannin winced out in pain as Naruto stuffed his hand into his mouth, shattering all of his teeth. His head snapped back as Naruto kicked him into the sky. He did not allow him to touch the barrier as he appeared above him and dropped his heel in his stomach. Blood exploded out of Orochimaru's mouth. His body was sent spiraling. Boom! He slammed into the tiling. Orochimaru was battered on the ground. In pain, Orochimaru picked himself up as he was healing, as best as he could. He couldn't afford to swap bodies once again. He couldn't. As Naruto appeared in front of him, the Sannin tried to kick Naruto, however, Naruto said one word: mutilate. That is when his hands turned into blurs. Orochimaru cried as Naruto carved in and out of his flesh. Blood splattered on Naruto as he ripped and tore into the man. The Sound 4 members started to look at one another. They had to stop this. They had to release the barrier now. They had to. They did, as they quickly jumped to their master aid. However, 4 shadows quickly deflected them from reaching him. As they stood there, they started to clash with said shadows, who were buying time. Orochimaru was on the ground. Huge gashes were in him. His chakra was no longer accessible at the moment because of the blade that Naruto was using. That is when Naruto reached, pulling out something out of thin air to their perception. It was a small item box as he quickly opened it. He then grabbed what was inside as he sent his chakra inside of it. When he opened his palm, it was a crystal. A small tiny crystal that was glowing blue. Orochimaru tried to move, but Naruto grabbed him by the throat as he forced said crystal into the Sannin skull. Orochimaru screamed the entire time until Naruto released him. Once he was released, there was a mark left on his forehead. It was an X. A simple X that was left on his forehead. Orochimaru had never felt like he was going to die before, but in this situation he felt it. He felt death coming for him as he looked up into those blue eyes that looked down at him. Yet there wasn't much rage. There was calmness. Like he wasn't done. No, he was not. The shadows quickly jumped away from the Sound 4 as Naruto leaped away. Immediately, Jirobo picked up Orochimaru, who could not move on his own. The Anvus tried to go after them. However, in the span of a second, Naruto was able to knock all of them away. Minato flashed towards his son as he stopped him, grabbing his hand as he did. "What are you doing?" "He's escaping," he said. It was awkward even talking to Naruto, but he couldn't allow him to attack his Anvus like this, and they were going to try and fight back against him. And given what Minato just witnessed, he doubted that they would win. Minato was looking into his son's eyes when suddenly he felt pain. Minato looked down. Naruto had drive the blade right through him. The man was shocked. He couldn't believe it. As this was going on, the Sound Ninjas were fleeing. The ones that remained, who were lucky enough to kill the Shadow Ninjas, or survived by dumb luck. As for Minato, he was shocked as Naruto had stabbed him. The Anvus all converged as Naruto pulled his blade out. Minato collapsed down to the ground. That is when his 2 elite shadows came, dropping the body of Temaru and Kankuro. Moments after, Naruto. It was Mito, who wasn't aware of the situation. Kushina was there as well. The one tail had been dealt with and restrained. Gaara was restrained. Minato was on the ground holding on to his stomach in pain. "It's really you," said Mito as Kushina stepped forward. "Please, don't run away," she said. "I know you're angry. I know that you don't think much of us anymore after what happened. But please, just give us a chance. I'm begging you." That is when they saw something. A massive... Was that San? Mito turned her gaze towards the unconscious Gaara as she saw San. All of the Sound Ninjas, they were obliterated from leaving the village. Their bodies were crushed and destroyed. As for the Sound 4 that was carrying Orochimaru, they were petrified as they saw the tsunami of sand. However, it split, giving them a way to exit. They were shocked and surprised, but they took it as they fled along with their master. Back on the roof, one of the Anvus was tending to Minato. As the individual realized that no vital organs were hit, it was just straight through. The Hokage would be fine. Whoever this individual was, He wasn't trying to kill the Hokage, just to subdue him for a time being. Naruto's gaze fell on Kushina, and she felt like the whole world was judging her. However, there was no anger in his eyes. He did not seem upset. He then turned his gaze towards his two younger siblings, and he smiled. A smile that made Mito feel so happy. Yet, there was not happiness behind his eyes. Menma, on the other hand, he didn't know what to say. He had an older brother, here he was. There was so much that he wanted to say, but he just can't. He then turned his gaze towards Minato and Kushina. You two did a good job raising them. I see that you guide the both of them into proper, respectable ninjas, he said. As Naruto, words were shocking to them, given their treatment of him. Even Menma and Mito were confused. Menma, Mito, said Naruto. I know that the truth was perhaps a lot to take in. But don't hate them, said Naruto. Despite everything, they're still your parents. Yes, what happened to me was tragic. But they're still your parents and they try their best to protect and keep the both of you safe. Despite the pain that Minato was feeling, there was so much regret and yet happiness as well to hear Naruto say that. It was Mito that stepped forward. Does this mean that you will come back, she said. As Naruto looked at her, the smile never reached his eyes. It was like he was dead inside. I'm afraid that this is not my home, he said. As Naruto glanced up, and it doesn't matter how tragic it seems, those people are not my parents. They haven't been for a very long time. No, that stunned the both of them. They knew that it was coming, but it was so hard to hear. That is just how things are. It was never fated for me to be a part of this family. But know this, little brother, little sister, said Naruto. I'll be watching over the both of you. I promise. Please, don't go, said Mito. Even if you're upset, we can find a way to sort this out. Just don't leave once again. I'm sorry, said Naruto, but I can't stay. Menma opened his mouth, however. Naruto was gone, sucked up by his own shadow. That is when the shadow from Menma and Mito was pulled out of them, and it was gone in the abyss as well. Every shadow that remained around Konoha was sucked into the abyss. Mito rushed towards it, but it was gone by the time she reached. She collapsed down to her knees as Menma lowered his head. Minato and Kushina felt terrible. The Anvus were surprised and shocked. That was their son. Time skip. A few weeks later, a lot has happened in the past few weeks. A whole lot. For one thing, Gaara and his siblings and the other captured Sand Ninja had been allowed to return home. Before Gaara had returned home though, Mito had spoken to him. It was what Naruto had said, despite the way that he was raised. Kushina and Minato were still good parents to them. When Mito had heard about the confinement of Gaara and his siblings, she asked her father to speak to him, because in the battle, he was screaming about having his identity being ripped away from him. So she sat down and talked with him. Her words seemed to get through to him as she revealed they were similar, they were the same. Both of them were Jinjulikis. And his way of living was not a good one unless he had people by his side. Releasing towards the hidden sand, Gaara was a different person entirely. Kushina had been depressed, seeing her son again and having him say that. It had hit her hard. Surprisingly though, Mito had been by her side. Menma was there as well. Her two children were there to cheer her up. They took their brother words to heart. If he had what it takes to forgive them, well, forgive was a strong word. He moved past them. But the way things are looking right now, it seems like he would never see them as parents ever again. He passed that. However, Minato, remember what Naruto said. He saw how much the boy was hurting. He did not care if Naruto did not see him as a father anymore. He wanted to help. He did not know why Naruto released Orochimaru, but given what he did to him, he figured that he had a plan for the Sannin. Yes, he figured that was the idea. Kushina was able to recover from the pain that she was feeling. Not fully, but enough to come out of the house. Because of Menma and Mito. If they were still hard on her in this time, it would have truly broken her down. However, the fact that Naruto did not see her as a mother anymore was a lot to take in. A whole lot. Since the invasion did not spread as much as the Sannin wanted, Konoha did not need a big recovery. Majority of the fighting was kept in the arena. The shadows. The shadows were able to stop any Konoha ninja from perishing during the battle, so their forces were not shaken in the slightest. The shadows had saved the life of many, jumping in the path, dying, just to come back minutes later. Yes, if it wasn't for them, a lot of Konoha ninjas would have fallen as well. Children were protected. Rumors spread rather quickly about the hero that did it. It is said that the son of Minato and Kushina, their firstborn, returned to help. Many were shocked by this, not knowing of this. And many now wanted him to return as a hero that he was. But that did not seem to be in the cards. Once again, he was nowhere to be found. Jiraiya, given his last interaction with him, he realized that finding him would not change that much unless he was willing to go full force to subdue him. Even then, Jiraiya did not know. Given the report that Minato had told him about the battle between Orochimaru and Naruto, to think that he was that powerful. However, while that was going on at Konoha, Orochimaru was in a dark, completely dark room. He had fully recovered from everything, but he was shaking. His eyes. He was looking around constantly. In the couple of weeks that went by, Orochimaru had killed 15 of his own people by accident. Something was wrong, terribly so. It started out simple. Flashback. Orochimaru had returned 2 days ago. He was frustrated that he failed to kill Minato, and he also failed to kill his pursuer. And there was a damn X on his forehead that would not go away. Chakra, nothing can seem to remove it. Orochimaru spun. Standing there was Naruto, his blade rushing to decapitate him. Orochimaru lashed out and decapitated Naruto instead. Naruto's body dropped on the ground. Orochimaru was shocked. How was he found? But better yet, he was now dead. He was finally dead. Orochimaru blinked as he saw one of his own men standing there with a few papers in his hand. He stepped back in shock. A week later, Orochimaru was surrounded by Naruto. 4 of them. They stabbed right through his stomach, causing him actual pain. At first he thought that the illusion could not hurt him, but he started to bleed. Orochimaru screamed as he decapitated and sliced through all of them. However, when his eyes adjust, their bodies reverted to sound ninjas. As he saw 2 others backed away in fear, Orochimaru started to tremble in fear and panic. He then noticed something as he lifted up his shirt. The wounds that he got in his nightmare. The wounds were still there. As the weeks passed, the more paranoid Orochimaru got. Every time he saw something at the edge of his vision, and every time he turned it wouldn't be there. He could not sleep. He's been taking pills for the past few days, because whenever he falls asleep, they trap him in his dreams, and they torture him. They stab, they maim, they slice him up. And when he woke up in reality, he was bleeding badly and in agonizing pain. He could not take it anymore. Finally, he had no choice. He had to switch bodies. He was going to switch bodies with someone that he had found. The body was able to withstand him because of the experiments that he did on it. To hold him in, Kabuto was there as well, to oversee the procedure. The transfer went perfectly. As Sannin reopened his eyes inside the new form, Kabuto had a look of distress on his face. "What's wrong?" Orochimaru said. Orochimaru glanced over toward the shiny table and looked at his reflection. A terrifying scream ripped out of his throat. The mark was still there. Despite switching bodies, the mark was still there. Orochimaru. Orochimaru turned. "You think you can escape me?" As Naruto was laughing, "There is nothing that you can do to run. I'll always be here. Always one step ahead of you. To hunt you. To torture you. To make sure that you suffer." Orochimaru lashed out with his hand, grabbing Naruto's neck. "Enough of this," he said. "I'll kill you with my bare hands." He started to squeeze and squeeze and squeeze. Frustration and rage letting out of him until he blinked and realized he was holding Kabuto. Kabuto was unconscious in his grip. Orochimaru released him as he backed away. Tripping over the table, he fled, fleeing towards a dark corner where he thought he might be safe, away from anyone. As Orochimaru locked himself inside, the paranoia, the madness, it was getting too much. He couldn't take it. He couldn't take it anymore. Meanwhile, Naruto was smiling as he enjoyed the chaos that he bring to Sannin. He could feel it. He could feel his desperation. He could feel his fear. What he put into Orochimaru's forehead was called the Cursed Jewel. After completing an untold number of his quests, it had appeared as a gift to him by the system. The Cursed Jewel was bound to him, bound to his soul and his chakra. It could not be removed from the individual unless he removed it, and there was only one that he possessed. However, the most remarkable thing about it was the individual that had it. Meanwhile, with Orochimaru, the Sannin was confused, despite the things that he'd done in his past. You would think that he would have a stronger will to fight something like this. However, in his hand he was holding a bloody kunai. Slowly but surely, the X on his forehead started to glow and heal the slash that was on his throat. Orochimaru was so paranoid and was so tired of it all that he tried to end it. He looked up as Naruto was standing there. He shook his head. "I'm afraid that's not gonna work. You see, you got what you wanted. You can't die." Screams could be heard from inside the dark room as Kabuto stood there hearing his master screaming. Back with Naruto. Yes, that was it. The jewel was bonded to Naruto's soul, making him an anchor to whoever he decided to torment. No matter what they do, unless he permitted, they could not die, even by completely destroying the individual's body. The seal would reform them. Yes, it was drawing on Naruto's chakra every time they did try to end themselves. However, Naruto had an obscene amount of chakra, which replenished so quickly that it wasn't going to bother him that much. And he was enjoying Orochimaru's suffering. Death was not what he desired to give the man. While he could have used this on Kimimaro, he was not the main one. He was not the one that started it all. So he went after the source. And he will enjoy as a Sannin suffers. Time skip. A month later, Naruto was doing what he usually did when he was not, causing the Sannin untold amount of suffering. As Naruto gazed, fell on the brown eyes of the woman in front of him. "Alright, let's do this," she said. The both of them started to drink all the shot glass of sake in front of them, numbering up to 12. The woman looked at him. "Again, you seem to surprise me," she said, "but that doesn't mean that you're gonna win. How about it? Round 2. Tuh, I hope you're ready to pay up," said Naruto with a smirk. In front of him was Tsunade Senju. He had met the woman not too long ago. She did not know who he was, and they were having a drink off. As they met in the bar, where she made a snide comment as she saw him drinking, saying that someone his age won't be able to handle such liquor. So they made a bet, and ever since, he's been hanging around with the woman, and they've been drinking. Shizune sighed. She did not know how he was doing this, but the alcohol was not affecting Naruto. Either Lady Tsunade did not see or she just did not hear, because Naruto was buying the drinks. Shizune was not sure who this individual was, but he sure can hold his liquor, or if he was doing some sort of trick. Not to mention, in just a couple of days, she has a hugest crush on him. He was handsome, charming, and so nice. However, she was too shy to approach in anything romantic. As she watched him and her master drink, Tsunade ought to know by now that something was stopping him from getting drunk, but she did not care, because he was buying. Shizune sighed as she made her way off, going to book the hotel for her and her master tonight, as the both of them kept on drinking until the bar closed up. They were both outside as Tsunade was swaying. She had a hand over Naruto's shoulder as he was leading her back to the hotel. He could tell that she was not as drunk as she was putting on, as he could feel the chakra inside of her as she was touching him. "So," she said, as the closer they got, "I was wondering if you were going to introduce yourself or tell me that you're Naruto Namikaze from Konoha, son of Minato and Kushina." Naruto did not stop walking as he kept on walking, her hand still over his shoulder. "And how did you find that out?" "A few weeks back, I came across Jiraiya. He wanted me to come back to the village. Your father wanted me to come back as well. And we spoke. They have a photo of you," she said. "And he showed it to me. And he told me everything. And I was able to trick him the next morning and I fled, along with Shizune, and I hit the road. I've been running since. I know that he's still after me. I was surprised when I ran into you." "You really think that our meeting was a coincidence?" she asked. "Well, me talking to you, to be more frank," she said. "Well, I was not sure if you know who I am. But I had to say, I enjoyed the drinking contest. It was fun. And I did as well. That is why I did not say anything until now. But I can tell that you're ready to move on once again." "You know something," she said. "We have the same eyes." "Now what do you mean by that?" he said. "We both lost who we thought is everything to us in this world. You have that same look. I see it every morning when I wake up. You know, it's strange that I'm telling you this. Maybe I'm still a bit hammered than I let on," she said. "You know what? It's not a big deal. I like you," she said with a smile. "As I was saying, we both lost people that we care about. And after what Jiraiya told me, I understand why you don't want to go back. Huh. I guess we're just two broken people." Naruto chuckled. There was no humor in his tone. "Huh, I guess you're right," he said. As they arrived in front of the hotel, Tsunade straightened up. "Will I see you again?" she asked. Missing your drinking buddy already?" Well, you're the only one that can drink with me like this, and besides, you pay for the best liquor. So yeah, she said, this is the most fun I've had in a very long while. Me too, said Naruto. I guess. Broken people can bond. As he started to walk away, maybe I'll see you again, he said. I'm not sure. Hey! She called out to him. As Naruto stopped, you have to focus on something. Otherwise, those bad thoughts would never go away. Try to find something to focus on. Something that is not horrendous. It would be really shameful for someone like you to go out that way, she said to him. Naruto did not move from his spot as she went into the hotel room. It took him a good minute before he started to walk off once again. As Naruto reached out to the outskirts of the village, as he started to make his way, the alcohol did not affect him because of the system. But he did not care. Drinking with the Sannin was fun. He did not know if she knew about him, but it seemed she did. But it was a good distraction. She was right. Naruto felt something, more than one, approaching. It was a lot of them. However, the one at the front was extremely powerful. The person materialized out of the darkness to show a man. Most of his body was covered in red armor. On his forehead was the headband of the hidden stone. He was wearing a red hat. This man was not normal. That is when Naruto found himself surrounded by countless stone shinobis. They were in hiding, masking themselves rather well. As they start to approach from all over, trapping him inside the rocky area, far away from the village. More start to come as well. As Naruto looked around, as all of them converged towards him, the one at the front stepped forward, releasing chakra. Tail Beast chakra. But guys, be and subscribe right here. If you want to see the next part and do, like, subscribe, comment down below, and turn on that bell notification to stay posted. Remember, share to all of your friends in your social media platform. But I'm off for now. See you guys soon. Peace.